I'm Nathan and welcome to Stories with a Twang. If you missed the incredible Peekaboo Saga by Bailey S. Singer, you're in luck, because this episode I've combined them all into one big bonus episode. I hope you enjoy. I named it Peekaboo. I figured if I gave it an innocuous name, I might diminish the effect it had on me. In hindsight, the juxtaposition was a bad idea. It actually made it worse, as it's Peekaboo's innocuous nature that made it so unnerving. I can't sleep anymore. I can't stand the idea of it watching me grapple with my nightmares. I can't swallow the thought of its invasion being the first thing I see on waking. I don't want this anymore. I just want 1 minute's respite from its eyes. It all started with my nighttime hobby. I have a masochistic tendency to stay up late and bury myself in short horror stories. I wouldn't call it a night until I felt that chill settling in my stomach. I was either incredibly picky or desensitized AF because it's a rare story that would cut me deep enough. I often stayed awake till the small hours in order to get my fix. I'd wake up for work the next morning bleary-eyed and lethargic, but I honestly wouldn't mind. I'd got what I wanted. The stories that affected me most were stories with an observer, when the protagonist was frequently watched by something that bumped in the night. You see, I tend to like my security. I draw security from the comfort of my home, knowing, within it, I can truly be myself, knowing I'm free of cavorting with the expectations of society, free of the masks I have to wear in order to do so. But being observed doing that? Being observed dropping the mask, revealing my vulnerabilities and not knowing? That's violating, a rape of my security. It sets me on edge. And if I discover the watcher had been at it for a while without me noticing, the feeling is compounded. Violation with interest. So, in effect, this was the theme I looked forward to. Here and there I'd find a gem, a story with a new spin or a fresh concept that set my heart racing and my imagination aflame. Oftentimes, though, I'd mostly end up disappointed by rehashed mediocrity. At first, there was a plethora of content to choose from. The highest rated stories on any free-to-read platform usually yielded a little gold. I made it through all the best stuff, and then most of the okay stuff, then slogged through the newer stories. At some point, I'd say about 15% of the stories I read were actually worth the time. The rest were dross. It took longer to find a story that chilled me to the bone. I didn't really dig the whole library vibe, and I refused to pay for some ebook service to bilk me for what money I had. I'd scroll through feeds and pages of titles hoping for one to catch my eye, hoping for something that wasn't just another recycled plot. I became frustrated. I wanted to feel the tingle of fear skitter across my spine. I wanted a chill. I wanted a watcher. In retrospect, it sounds as if I were trying to feed an addiction. Maybe I was. Third night running with no release. It was late. I was scrolling. 2 hours in, I angrily threw my phone at a pillow. I was fed up. I felt like I had read everything, and now it was all lackadaisically cycled through and through again and again. I kept thinking about the observer. It was the only concept that chilled me anymore. I wanted to find one. I needed to find one. I shook my head angrily and growled in frustration. I looked out the window. There was something watching me. Peering around the edge of the window frame like a child trying to spy was the top half of a face. It only poked over enough for the eyes to be visible. The skin was ghostly pale, strings of matted greasy black hair spilled across its forehead, not enough to obscure its eyes. They were unblinking, milky with tiny black pupils bulging with intensity. The crescents of dimples could barely be seen. It was smiling maniacally. It watched me through my window at 2 a.m. on the second floor. I screamed and scrambled backwards right off the bed. My back hitting the floor ripped the wind from my lungs. I struggled to rise. I could barely breathe. I had to get up. I used the bed for support and an ironic parody peeked my eyes over it just enough to see. It was gone. Shit. I managed enough breath to get to my feet, trembling. Why was it watching me? Why was it up here? How was it up here? I pattered to the window with trepidation. I peered out, looking left, right, upwards. I saw nothing. Nothing but the backyard. Nothing for that thing to climb or hold to either. I sat back on the edge of the bed. Did I imagine it? Am I hallucinating? Did my desperation for a frightening fix loosen some screws? I sat there for an hour. Nothing happened. I closed the shears and went to bed. I didn't sleep. The next morning was dreadful. I know I stated before that I'm typically okay with a lack of sleep, but damn, this was another level of tired. I was groggy. I was cranky. I couldn't focus on a single thing long enough to even hope to be considered coherently productive. I yelled at Steven. I love Steven. We played golf sometimes. The boss asked me how I was feeling. He let me go home early. Despite my dreadful state, I chose to take advantage of the free time and meandered my way to my favorite coffee spot. Its atmosphere was a cross between a hipster cafe and a diner, edgy enough for my pretension and homey enough to make me feel secure. I collapsed into a booth and put my head down, resting my eyes. I couldn't get the ones from last night out of my head. The new waitress took my order, a double shot in the dark with cream and cane sugar. I didn't relish the idea of going home and sleeping. I wanted to think, and I needed some fuel. My eyes roved the table. The chrome napkin dispenser reflected the window behind me. It reflected the image of a milky-eyed something staring at the back of my head. I leapt out of the booth spinning. Nothing in the window. I'm sleep-deprived, I told myself. I can't even think straight. There wasn't anything there. I sat back down on the opposite side of the booth facing the window, watching. Back at home, I tried to comfort myself with my routine. I washed the dishes, I fed the chameleon, I cooked myself an amazing steak, medium rare with a husky smoked salt. I checked my emails, I brushed my teeth. My mind began wandering as I was laying in bed. Maybe I should cut back on the horror stuff. There's a good chance I'm doing this to myself. I hope Steven doesn't hold a grudge. Those eyes. I wonder if the boss would give me some time off. How the hell did it get to my window? I need to cool it with the horror stuff. I fell asleep. Waking up with an urge to pee, I checked my phone. 3:03 a.m. Nice. Enough time to get another good sleep in before my alarm. Yawning, I closed my phone and rolled out of bed. I padded to the bathroom, trusting more to muscle memory than actually using my eyes. I preferred to have a light plugged in the bathroom outlet rather than turn on the overheads. Kira called it my night light. I called her an asshole. Either way, though, it was enough to see by, but not enough to ruin my sleep mode. Perfection. I dug sleep from the corners of my eyes as I approached the sink. I ran the water and splashed some on my face. I cupped some to drink, then reached for the tea towel hung close by. I toweled dry as I straightened. In the mirror from behind the shower curtain, I saw those eyes observing my every move. Wide, protruding, they caught the mint green glow and radiated with illumination. They were nearly obfuscated with voyeuristic glee, the dimples of its manic smile giving away the rapture it felt from observing me. I spun. Nothing. Throwing back the curtain revealed an empty shower. What the actual hell? My heart was racing. I looked back at the mirror. Nothing. My hands were shaking when I returned to my bed. Troubled, I settled in, turned on my side. I'm a side sleeper. Facing the window, and there it was again, peering from the opposite side of the window this time. I froze. Only froze. I didn't move. Considering it the most difficult thing I've ever done, I made eye contact, and I held it. I didn't think it was even possible, but those milky eyes seemed to grow wider. The dimples creeping up as its hidden smile grew bigger. I didn't understand how its flesh didn't tear. A fog was slowly creeping along the glass. It was breathing, and breathing heavily. A single skeletal finger appeared and caressed the glass lovingly, leaving a streak in the fog. Suddenly, I was angry. I was furious. I trembled, but not from terror this time. I flung back the duvet and stormed toward the window. Grabbing my bedside lamp, I wrenched it free of the wall. I was going to smash this thing. I'm done. As I reached the open window, it ducked back out of sight. Swearing, I fumbled the window open and looked out. Nothing. "Where are you?" I shouted at the night air. I thought I heard a giggling in the wind. It would appear in windows, behind curtains, peer around doors, even once from the inside of a vending machine. I could see it in reflections or out of my periphery. Every time I moved to confront it, it'd flash out of sight, disappearing without a trace. Once or twice, I heard it tittering. This was when I started calling it Peekaboo. Over time, Peekaboo became noticeably more excited. It would breathe harder, faster, like a pervert anticipating a night of reckless debauchery, frantically stroking the glass, nails skittering along the surface in a parody of desire. It wanted me. I felt it needed me. It needed to watch me. What did it want from me? I felt sick thinking about it. Peekaboo became more thin, more gaunt, face slowly morphing into a skull. The eyes became more animated, more lively, glowing, quivering in their sockets. Its smile became so wide I could see the corners beside its eyes, and frothy saliva began to appear. It left traces of it smeared against the windows and doors it hid behind. Peekaboo was rabid, deranged, infatuated. I was sitting on the bus with my head against the window, just trying to keep it together. I couldn't sleep anymore. I barely ate. Work told me to take some time off and get some help. I couldn't take pleasure from a single thing in my life because I knew it would be watching me, savoring me, relishing every moment. I felt something caress the back of my head. I shrieked, jumped out of my seat, and bolted out the already closing door of the bus. It was Peekaboo. I know it was. It wasn't satisfied with watching me anymore. It was advancing. It was touching me. It wanted more of me. I began to weep. Late night, sitting in bed with the covers to my neck, my home was a prison. I couldn't get away. I left the window open. I've resigned myself to my fate. It won't leave. It'll never leave. I'm through with living like this. No security, no safety. I heard heavy breathing, like a pneumonia patient struggling to survive. A slithering sound, then a wet thwomp hitting the floor. This was it. I closed my eyes as tight as I could. I couldn't watch what was about to happen. I heard the wet noodle sound of it crossing the floor. The gasping breath was close, closer. Motion on the mattress as it climbed up beside me. I could feel its rancid breath on my ear as it spoke.
Be careful what you wish for.
That thing had entered my home and forced those words shivering into my brain on a wave of putrid breath. It tittered maniacally, and my skin practically crawled off my body as I felt its moist, hot tongue caress my cheek. I whimpered and prayed to a god I never believed in as I prepared myself for the worst. I waited for its teeth to sink into my neck, for its jagged, ragged fingernails to rake the eyes from my skull. I waited, and waited, and waited. I sat waiting until the nascent vestiges of dawn broke across my tightly closed eyelids. They fluttered open, and my breath caught as I prepared to once again come face to face with the entity I had named Peekaboo. And I was alone. Blessedly alone. Even so, I sat there till almost midday, expecting it to spring out from behind the curtain in homage to its namesake with a banshee shriek as it rushed me in a final, horrible prank. But it didn't. Nothing happened. I sat and pushed the limits of how long a person could hold their water before wetting themselves. I eventually decided to brave the bathroom, and nothing happened. The release of relieving myself was nothing compared to the relief I felt from realizing I might finally be rid of my demonic voyeur. I pondered on how I had just given in. I was at my wit's end and desperate and just wanted to cease the endless invasion of my privacy. I thought the only way to end this nightmare was to just give in and give it what it wanted. I began to assume it only manifested itself to impart a lesson I should never forget, like a twisted version of the ghosts of Christmas past. But you know what they say about making assumptions, right? Weak-kneed and stumbling, I eventually made my way to the kitchen to begin embracing what was once my safe, predictable morning routine: semi-sweet coffee and a slice of rye. I almost smiled as I leaned against the counter and followed the motions of familiarity. Lost in thought, eyes unseeing, I reached into the cupboard to grab the canister of earthly brown ground goodness. Instead, my hand came down on something wet and hot. I recoiled with a shriek, remembering the feeling of Peekaboo's tongue sliding across my jawline. I threw the cupboard doors wide and saw my coffee. Hawaiian medium roast, sitting as I expected. I'm losing it. The irony wasn't lost on me that that's what I had thought when Peekaboo first began appearing. I desperately clung to the possibility that I was going mad, as that was more preferable to the alternative. I mechanically prepared my morning repast, all pleasure lost. I didn't feel as if I could handle returning to work. I told them that I wasn't in any fit state to return, but I was seeking assistance to ensure I get back on my feet. My boss understood. I have the best boss. I spent the rest of the day trying to pull the pieces of my routine together. My morning go-to was spoiled by a fear-fueled delusion. I was hell-bent on getting my life back. I tidied up the collective refuge I let stagnate during my moments of turmoil. I made myself dinner, a lovely roast chicken with garlic and lemon. I showered and felt every drop cascade down my skin while the tension left my body. I had my life back. I had accepted the consequences of my entitled antics and finally felt close to my old self. I held my face up to the stream, eyes closed. I relished the tranquility and reached to turn the tap and dug through a mass of tangled, greasy hair. I started back and lost my footing. I snatched at the towel bar and ripped half of it off the wall, barely saving myself from at least a broken coccyx. I didn't see anything. Nothing made its nefarious appearance. Once is happenstance, twice is coincidence. I was shaken. I insisted on the possibility of some type of PTSD manifestation. I still tried to cling to the idea of freedom and stability. I was free, damn it. I was rid of that sadistic stalker. I dried, dressed, I brushed my teeth. For the first time in an eternity, I collapsed in my bed without fear. I was physically, emotionally, and spiritually exhausted. I felt as if I could hibernate till winter, shower again, then hibernate till spring. I sighed with pleasure as I settled in. The incident in the shower had unsettled me, true, but at that moment I just didn't care. For the first time in what I felt was forever, I didn't have some perverted demon creature staring at me as I tried to sleep. I snuggled in, sighing. I was asleep before I finished exhaling. I started awake, checking the alarm clock, 3:03 a.m. I felt uncomfortable. I had awoken with such urgency. Why did I do that? I felt that something was wrong. I tried to shrug it off by pattering to the washroom to answer the call of nature. I sat half asleep in the pale green LED glow of my wall light. It is not a nightlight. I could barely keep my eyes open. Finishing up, I zumbily returned to bed. Settling in, I tossed and turned. I flipped onto my opposite side, smacking my lips. I felt a rustling so soft it barely registered, but it was enough to open my eyes. And there it was. So close to my face our noses were almost touching. Peekaboo's wild, bloodshot eyes were staring into mine with such nihilistic glee. It was breathing heavily, its breath foul and damp. Long, greasy black hair splayed around its head and face. Its tongue fanatically licking its lips in a wet, sloppy fanaticism, yellow mucus covering and dripping and pooling on my pillowcase. It giggled so softly. It reached up, caressed my face, its skin rough and dry like a snake's, and leaned in as if for a kiss. I snapped. I shrieked. I smacked the hand as if it were venomous, frantically scrambling and kicking and scrabbling away, but I couldn't. I was cocooned in my blankets. They held fast like a vice, following the will of this creature's twisted desire. It pressed both hands to my cheeks, leaned in close.
Oh, you are just so beautiful,
it croaked and crooned into my ear.
We're gonna have so much fun.
My heart was hammering so hard I felt it in my toes. I was hyperventilating. It wanted me. It wanted to invade more than my privacy. Its eyes wide as saucers, unblinking, tiny pupils quivering with anticipation. It moaned in my ear and I shrieked in response and squeezed my eyes so tight it felt they fused shut. "Leave me alone!" I screeched, clenching my whole body. And it was gone, like a puff of smoke. I would have believed it was a night terror if not for the pool of yellow mucus on my pillow, and the tiny, intentionally slow titter I heard come from the vent above my bed. I'm guessing Peekaboo followed the same rules as a vampire. It never ever got so intimate in invading my space before until I let it into my home. I thought the worst thing it could do to me was watching, observing, voyeuring. But I was so wrong. That was just the beginning. I've resigned myself to my fate, even though I have no clue as to why this is happening to me. I realize now that I'm just its plaything, its toy, its pet. I'm writing this as a sort of farewell, for even now as I type this I can feel its breath in my ear as it presses itself against me, moaning in rapture. I'm worn out, worn down. I can barely focus on speaking, eating, thinking, and you know what? I don't even have the energy to feel afraid anymore. My body is covered in pinpricks of pain from the pieces that Peekaboo would remove. They zap my strength like a couple dozen tiny vampire bat bites. My bed is riddled with small splatters and spots of blood from the holes in my flesh. I resigned myself to my fate around the time I last contacted the masses, and my cares have grown fewer over the last while. I haven't left my home in 2 weeks. Grocery delivery and short-term disability have been my life support. I'm at the point where I'm considering pulling the plug. There's no point in living as a toy. I don't know why Peekaboo hasn't killed me. It seemed content to sample me whenever it felt like it. When I woke up today, Peekaboo was nowhere to be seen. I drudged myself toward the computer, intending on typing, well, a final farewell, I guess. There was an open document on the screen. It appeared that Peekaboo taught himself how to use the computer. I most definitely did not type this. Here's what it was.
The sound of these little plastic pieces creating lovely words. It's so delightful, like bone against bone, like slow, steady dripping of blood from a wound, like my fingers against glass as I adored my new companion. He called me something. Peekaboo. I liked it. Peekaboo. I peek, then I boo. It was sweet for him to give me such a name. He's so lovely. He's so delicious. He's my favorite out of all the ones I've found, and I've found so many delectable morsels begging for my attention. But this one, he's so very, very tasty. He was so kind to me, accepting me into his home. Most those I visit end up leaving me. My last tasty morsel did something. There was a lot of blood, and they stopped moving after a while. I think it's called dying. What's dying like? My new friend lays in his oh-so-sweet bed and sleeps. Yes, sleeps. Is that like dying? I don't like it when he sleeps. I can't watch the trembling fear cross his face whenever I scuttle close to taste his flesh. His flesh is so sweet, so scrumptious like honey and bile and blood sugar. His terror is even more delicious. It fills me with a joyous exuberance. It explodes out of me in a tittering song of rapture. He sleeps now, twisting and turning and groaning and moaning and whimpering and crying and Maybe this sleeping thing is more enjoyable than I thought. Maybe I'll play a lovely little game with him. I've spent so much time enjoying him, caressing him, pulling out hairs, pulling out fingernails, consuming them. I feel it's time to surprise him. I know, hide and seek. I'll hide, and when he wakes to seek, I'll stay hidden until he thinks I'm gone. I did this once, right after he so lovingly invited me in. I hid inside his food room, and when he reached up to get something, he placed his hand right on top of my hungry, waiting tongue. The fear it instilled in him tasted just as good as his skin. His scream was so scrumptious. I shuddered with pleasure. I think about when I first heard his need for fear, his need to feel that ringle-tingle running down his spine in the pit of his belly. I visit people who have a terrible disregard for the terror. Their terror lives tied and twisted and buried deep in their hearts, waiting to be coaxed and coerced into manifesting. It compels me. I know nothing but the urge, the impulse to rectify that lack. I know no other need. I want no other need. I don't know where I go between desires. It's a place of nothing, a place of emptiness, a place of silence, like the space between the inhale of a breath and the exhale of screaming, a place no sweetness ever existed. It infuriates me when I cannot have my delicious morsels. And then his desire awakened me. I existed. Once again, I existed. He drew me to him with his rage and frustration, his desire to fear, and when I saw him, I wanted to help him. I needed to help him. I wanted to dig into him and wrench out his horror, to sate the vicious desire as it resonated in the pits of my bones, and my teeth ached in longing. But I couldn't. I couldn't get to him. I couldn't touch him. I needed to. I wanted to. I watched his every move, growing hungrier inside, but delighted in the way his fear kept trickling out like an oozing sore, more and more when he would see me. Flavorful, that was me. I did that. I made the fear come out. I was so happy. And now he finally realized that I was meant for him. He invited me in, a terrible tandem to take the terror to new tipsy tops. Fun. Well, it has been fun, and yet, something has started to change. No. But yes, it's changed, small, different, but no, it didn't. But it did. Damn your eyes, look! No, not him. Not my precious sweet meat skin. The sugar started salting and is no longer sweet when I tasted him. His twitching was barely a reflex. The fear didn't bore into the core of his heart in the most satisfying of ways anymore. The fear fluttered. It fluttered like the baby birds. I'm afraid of losing my sweet, sweet companion, losing his delicious fear. Maybe it's time to initiate the transfer. Maybe it's time to become other. Hide and seek will have to wait. I need to consider.
I was appalled and a little bit mystified. Aside from the terrifying content, I didn't know the creature could be so eloquent. And the affection it seemed to have for me, it gave me goosebumps, but it was, admittedly, in a perverted sort of way, kind of sweet. The message also left a sour taste in my mouth. I had done this to myself. I literally summoned this demon with my own petulant and ungracious behavior. Become other. Though I did not enjoy the sound of that, it gave me the impression that Peekaboo had more up his sleeve than torture. I heard a scuffling from the corner of the room, and I trepidatiously turned towards it. Its demeanor had changed lately. God, I feel stupid, but it didn't seem happy anymore. Am I mad for feeling just the tiniest bit of pity for it? It terrorized me, tortured me, taunted and tormented me, but I always seemed so enraptured when doing so. Lately, it looked almost as jaded as I felt. I met its eyes. It stared back unblinking, looking pensive, considering. I started when it spoke to me.
You lost your sweet, sweet flavor.
It croaked reproachfully, still considering me with its roomy, too big eyes.
You lost your sweetness, and it frustrates me.
I was taken aback. There was a hint of accusation in its voice, as if I had done something intentional to slight it. I gaped, wordless, and fumbled to find my voice. Incredulity and anger filled my chest. I'm sorry? I frustrate you? You act as if I stole something from you. What about me? What about everything you did to me? The stalking and hounding and torture and everything else you took from me. Go screw yourself. It quivered, but it didn't seem like anger or indignation. It almost seemed to be regret.
Peekaboo didn't want to take your fear. Peekaboo wanted to help you, to be with you, to give you the fear you oh so craved in the deepest caverns of your heart. Peekaboo didn't want this.
It wailed and hissed in a parody of anguish. It was an uncomfortable sensation feeling both appalled and sympathy for such a creature. So, that becoming other thing you mentioned. Peekaboo flashed to life, scuttling down the wardrobe and scurrying across the floor faster than thought. Before I could even react, it was upon me, clutching my shirt, nose pressed to mine. It stared deeply, deeply into my eyes. A twisted lover's stare.
Other. Yes, other. Tell me, do you want this to end? Do you want me to stop mongering for your delicious fear? I don't want this to end. In the sweetness? I don't want to lose your sweet, sweet flavor.
Its foul breath washed over me, and it took a second to process the words. End it? In this seemingly ceaseless onslaught of torture? I cleared my throat. At what cost? What will it cost me to end this nightmare? It dropped away, scurrying backwards, eyes still locked on mine, to the corner of the room by the computer desk. It sat for a long, long time, never blinking, never moving. I started to sweat from the anticipation and anxiety.
Accept me.
It hissed. I blinked. Accept it? Didn't I already do that? What do you mean, accept? Didn't I accept you already? You're here, aren't you?
Accept me. Embrace me. Take me into your bosom and let me be of you.
I was confused and filled with a disjointed feeling I couldn't quite identify. I couldn't understand what it meant. I didn't know if I wanted to. I wanted the ordeal to end, but what did it mean to accept Peekaboo? What happens to me if I accept you?
Us. What happens to us? Nasty human. Nasty. It happens to us.
I was taken aback. It hardly occurred to me that Peekaboo would be affected by this becoming. Its written message gained more gravity in my mind. Us? It's something that affects us both? The growl seeped from its throat reminded me of a beast. It was angry. It didn't like what we were talking about as much as I did.
Us. Nasty. Both of us. We lose what we find sweet and we find what we want. Both. Us. Let us be or let us continue.
Peekaboo was as agitated as it had been before I invited it into my life by leaving that godforsaken window open. Why can't you just go? Why can't you just leave me alone and leave?
No. I am here. Peekaboo is here. Here to make the fear come forth in all its delicacy. I cannot go.
It growled again. I slumped in dismay. It appeared this was an all-or-nothing scenario. What did I do? What did I have to lose? A lifetime of minute torture? An eternity of sweet treatment? All I felt was despair. All I felt was a sense of inevitability, resignation, acceptance. Fine. You win. Peekaboo, I accept you. Immediately, it sprung to life, scrambling toward me, its eyes wider than I'd ever seen, bulging, filled with pure insanity. The grin it sported split its face as neatly as an axe. It was a smile of rapture. It was a smile of relief. It was a smile of a thing delighting in the sweetest treat ever existing. It climbed me, fingernails digging through my clothes into my skin, climbing closer, grasping my head with its 2 skeletal hands, snake-like skin rasping against my cheeks.
You are so beautiful.
And then it kissed me. The world went dark. Darkness. Everything was dark. Nothing. No pain. No hunger. No anything.
Yes, yes,
I heard the whisper.
yes. Welcome to the dark. Welcome to nothing. Welcome to my home. Dark, dark, darkness. Dark like the absence of life. Dark like there, a pool, a flash. There, life, hunger. I hungered. Yes.
I heard Peekaboo's whisper in my head. Suddenly, I existed. I could see. Grass. Dew-covered grass, colored teal in the early evening darkness. I could move. I could feel.
There, look.
The all-too-familiar voice hissed. I raised my head. A window. A window lit from within, and a sense of anger, frustration, arrogance. An arrogance that burned in the pit of my stomach. An arrogance that must be quashed.
Yes.
Peekaboo's voice hissed yet again. I moved. I engaged my limbs and crawled closer, closer to the light. I could see into the window, see a girl sitting on her bed. She was peering into her phone, a look of pure dissatisfaction on her face. She wasn't happy. Maybe I could make her happy.
Time to get to work.
Peekaboo voiced an nihilistic parody of joy. This is a warning. I write this on my own computer telling you, beware. Beware that feeling of frustration. Beware the negligence you all project toward the idea of fear. Beware because we will come for you. Peekaboo and I, we are one. We will be happy to help you feel the fear you oh so crave. We will be enraptured to taste the sweetness you have to offer. We will come for you. Sweet dreams and happy hunting. Alright everyone, that's it for this week's story. I would like to give a giant thank you to this week's author, Bailey S. Singer, for another amazing story on the show. If you have any stories you would like me to read on the show, you can send them over to storieswithatwang@gmail.com. The show is on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Stories with a Twang Podcast. It would mean an awful lot if you could rate and review the show wherever you listen, and don't forget to share with your friends and family as well. It could really help the show grow. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and until next time, remember that a little twang goes a long way.